Hello and welcome to this new module of AI ethics. My name is Adrian Gonzalez. I'm very happy to be here, and we will be talking about data and artificial intelligence. Concretely, we'll be exploring the relation between the ethical approaches and the legal approaches, between what we should do based on the moral and what we have to do based on the regulations. Just a little bit about me. I'm a cloud data and AI specialist at Microsoft. I'm also a lecturer at HEC Montreal and Concordia University, two universities in Canada. I lead some AI initiatives at Odisea, which is an observatory in Spain. And I collaborate with a series of platforms like Really Media, the Linux Foundation, Get Smarter, TopTal, etc., etc. I have a hybrid kind of background, technical. I work with technical teams, but also on the business side. And I want to bring my experience on this academic and professional world to this module for you to learn about data and AI. So the topics we'll be covering today is data, but in terms of data protection, what's the regulation protecting the rights of the individuals depending on the geography, like in Europe, in United States, Canada, China, etc., how different these approaches are. Is there something related to regulation of artificial intelligence and where? And how is ethics impacting the regulation or the regulation impacting the ethics of the organizations and the companies? So the overlap between these four topics will be the core of this short module. We say technically, we know that everyone wants or should want to do something that is 100% legal, but also ethical, right? We want to do something that we are allowed to do, but also something that is good for society, for the world, that is not creating any negative outcome for a specific target of the population. And it's interesting because up to now, we had a lot of documentation, literature, guidelines around ethics as something that we should do, as recommendations, but not necessarily like a regulation telling you how to be ethical. However, we had regulations for data protection, for example, GDPR in Europe, or CCPA, or other regulations around the world, basically telling us as organizations and individuals working for this organization how we can use the data extracted from the people, from the clients, from the users. This is changing. Now we have also regulations for artificial intelligence. We'll be talking about that. But at the end of the day, what we believe is that we should be on this quadrant on the unambiguous area, which is doing something that is legal but also desired, is compliant, but it's also good for society. However, we have seen plenty of cases, right? We have several examples here: Cambridge Analytica with Facebook, the scandal around data protection a few years ago. This one for North American company, North Point, Keyvant, they created a system called Compass that was evaluating the residence of people in jail, the probability of residence. And there were some analysis performed by other organizations proving that the outcome of this tool was especially negative for Black people. So this is another example, and it's very famous. This is the example of Amazon with an HR tool that is creating some negative bias on female candidates. And we could continue like this. There are several cases that we can learn from. But the important thing is to consider in all these cases, we go back to the notion of legal and ethical. Were these companies doing something legal at that time? Maybe it was legal, but it was a new kind of situation that wasn't considered by the regulation. Was ethical? Probably no, if there is a negative outcome. And it really depends also on the geography, right? It's not the same kind of notion of ethics in Europe than in United States or Canada. So we have seen several cases that are convincing us that probably some reinforcement, some regulation is necessary in order to avoid this kind of situations. One of the reasons is the transparency, like the notion of we're creating an AI system and we're saying, okay, whatever the system says is good, and we can even automate decisions. Well, that's not enough, clearly. Like more and more people are saying, like, no, we need to understand the result of an AI system. And the other part is also like a building diverse teams, like the human aspect of the teams and the organizations. So we have a good representation of male, female, Black, Asian, Caucasian people, all the diversity. So we can keep in mind potential bias, negative bias against specific population because we have this diversity on the team. It's not the same if all the people are from the same background and they cannot think in another way. We have seen a few initiatives before the regulation. We have seen a new initiative from Microsoft, Accenture, Telefonica, plenty of companies. There are more out there. Google also, and they are defining what they call their AI principles, the way they want to use artificial intelligence. That it should be fair. There should be some accountability, transparency, ethics. So that's very good because the industry that has been pushing that, seeing that it was necessary, that we needed to use artificial intelligence and data in a proper way. It has been so big that this Harvard resource that is tracking all the different initiatives around the world based on specific themes or principles has a huge list of initiatives, and it's a very good resource that you can check later. Um, and this is a bit of a joke, but also it's true, right? That artificial intelligence is arriving to specific areas of society, in this case with the Pope, but it's all the governments, all the companies, individuals, the schools, etc. Everyone is talking about this, the potential of AI, but also the associated risk. So if we have the notion of ethics, what we want to do in order to be a good organization, a good person in a good society, then we have the regulations that are here to reinforce the behaviors of the organizations in order to do the right thing, in order to avoid the kind of risk we have seen with the previous examples. And if you take this visual, like a two-dimension time and the horizontal axis and scope, what we're seeing is that, during the last years, and there's a lot of tradition already of data protection, data privacy laws, starting by GDPR, but also previous versions in Europe, in Canada, etc. And that's a good practice that's been consolidated around the world. And doesn't matter, we have different geographies, different approaches, but all of them are converging to something that will be protecting the data of individuals. I bring some examples of California for the United States, Canada, and Quebec for the Canadian context, European Union. But in addition to that, the data privacy laws, there are new AI regulations in place or being created actually. And the most advanced is the European Union. We'll see the AI Act, but there are other countries considering new AI regulations. And this again is to reinforce the idea of we need to protect data, one, and then we need to do the proper thing with regulation, two. This is a very good resource for you to have from DLA Paper, which is lawyers, and they have this platform for data protection laws that you can explore in real time and see the actual regulations operating in different countries and the level of data protection that you can see that Europe, North America, China, etc., all of them have a high level of data protection, but obviously different approaches. It's not the same kind of data protection. You see here, this is from an article that is actually not online anymore, but I kept the archive, and it was saying like, look at this, there's a huge difference in the way the European and American approaches are treating data for individuals. Basically, data is an asset on the American culture, right? It's a commodity that we can use in order to generate wellness. And in Europe, it's treated like a private property, like an individual right of the people. So you see in United States, in this case, the power is more on the organizations using the data of the individuals, while in Europe is all the opposite. The power is in the individuals, and then the organizations need to adapt in order to use their data. And I bring the Canadian case because of my own experience, which is in between of both approaches, but closer probably to the European approach, very similar. This, of course, influences the way governments are working with companies in order to evolve regulations and to innovate, etc. This is just the story of the GDPR in Europe. Actually, the tradition of data regulation is coming from UK, and after that, it was adopted by the whole European Union. And this evolution, again, based on the notion of this is your right, your individual right, has been impacting the regulations of other countries because all of them are trying to be more or less compliant with the GDPR approach. But Europe, the same way that I was pioneer on the data protection side, also for the AI regulation side. So there's this new AI Act being announced in 2021, which is trying to create different levels of risk associated to specific AI applications. Basically saying, okay, we shouldn't do something that is based on biometric or face recognition, like the famous cases of the American police using face recognition for law enforcement, etc. Well, the European regulation is saying no, this is not possible. We cannot use that because it's just too dangerous. And then we have other kind of applications, the high level of risk, maybe it's for safety, maybe something that is related to recruiting, to justice, etc. Like critical applications, but still not forbidden. And then we have limit risk, which is mostly for B2C scenarios where companies have a chatbot or they are doing all kind of systems like spam filters or market segmentation, etc. So you see that this is a very interesting approach. We'll see this is the good one because it's a work in progress, but at least it's trying to create the categories of risk, and based on that, there are different kind of actions like audits, like analysis of the outcome of the systems, like interactions between the auditors and the companies, and also the impact on the internal AI governance programs for the companies. So this again is creating a wave of new ideas for regulations around the world. As you can see, regulation is really coming from Europe, and then impacting the rest of the geographies. If you check the American case, is a bit different. So basically, in the United States, we have like a matrix of privacy laws, depending on the vertical, if it's for students, biometric, etc., is in different states. But the Californian approach with their new CCPA, or relatively new, which is trying to converge a little bit with GDPR, very similar approach, but more pro-innovation in the sense that is allowing the companies to use individual data and then give people the option to opt out from their systems. While in Europe, well, basically you as an individual, you need to go to a company and give the data and say, hey, I want you to use the data. But on the CCPA case, is the opposite. But at least there is a consideration of individual data. And this is important because it's making things a bit easier to organizations that operate in both North America and Europe, because at least you are using the same kind of approach, and this is less work for the companies, right? The Canadian approach, as I mentioned, has been always, in my opinion, very similar to the European one, based on the same principles. maybe different implementations. There are two levels, like the provincial one, like for example, Quebec with a new regulation. Canada is also renewing the regulation, but it will be on the line of the GDPR kind of regulation, basically protecting individual data, and then adding some notions of automated decision making, which is basically saying like we are trying to regulate a little bit the AI applications in the same way that Europe is doing. So this is a work in progress, but also good news for organizations and individuals around the world. Like we are converging approaches. And the Chinese approach, which is a bit different, there is not like a single data protection law, but there are a series of laws being deployed since 2017 that are increasing the data protection, maybe with a different approach, more government-centric. The same way that the European approach is more citizen-centric, and the American one is a company-centric. But at least they are working on this with a different approach, and they're working also on the AI regulation. So you see that all the pieces are moving towards the same direction with different ways to do it. But again, good news. And for companies, it's very important to be compliant with all these, but the way to reinforce their good behavior and to make sure that they are aligning with the regulations is to put like very powerful fines. We have seen a lot of cases of companies doing negative things with data or not aligned or not compliant with the regulation. And the GDPR has specific figures. The same will be for AI Act. The same for the Canadian regulations. This is the way to go right now. And here, for you to see the transition between the data privacy awareness period, they call it, to what's happening today, where we are moving towards accountability, right? It's not only that we need to be protecting the data, that we need to be like responsible, is that we'll be, as organizations and individuals, will be accountable. You remember this case we have mentioned, Facebook and Cambridge Analytica was in 2015, and I believe people started to be aware of the value of their data. No? So a lot of different movements and organizations, initiatives, etc., in order to guarantee that we are doing the proper thing. Then 2018, the GDPR that we have mentioned, CCPA between 2018 and 2020, the AI Act now in 2021, on this age of responsible AI, no? That we are trying to be responsible not only with the data, but also with the outcome of the AI systems. And from now on, it's a matter of accountability. Once the regulations are there, what we are saying is that we need to be accountable, and we will be accountable if we create something that is negative in terms of data and AI, and there will be fines. And there's a whole process on the companies to analyze how to be ethical and legal that will enable their AI and data governance initiatives, and they'll result in proactive, reactive audits and interaction with the government in order to be compliant. So these are the three periods, and you have the article on the bottom. It's an article I wrote with the Linux Foundation Data and AI, in which I explain this evolution of the data and AI regulation approach. But again, we are going towards something that is legal and desired. With regulation and also with the notion of moral and initiatives of the organizations and the willingness of the individuals, we are going towards legal and desired. And here is a last resource, like a bonus track for you, is a data and AI governance canvas in which I'm trying to put together different considerations for the companies that are thinking about their data and AI legal and ethical initiatives and how they are matching and all the things we need to consider in order to create the governance processes and the board, etc. So here you have a mix of tools, processes, people, stakeholders, the principles of the company, the relation with the MLOps that we are not covering today, but is very important also for the AI governance, and all the regulatory aspects. So I hope you have enjoyed. You have my contact. You have a few resources on the bottom of the different slides that you can visit later with very good information, articles. And thank you very much for your attention. Have a very nice day.